Well, I read a lot of information, and I just want to bring out another point about something I read about in Australia. Um, they knew about this, but I guess it's more recent news as to this oil discovery, how much it actually contains. Um, they did a $30 million study, and it turns out there's a hell of a lot more shale oil in this one small area in Australia that actually will be at least 60 times what Australia's oil reserves are estimated to be at right now. Okay, 233 billion barrels of oil estimated, right? Now, part of it is some of that oil is going to be more inaccessible. It's going to require a lot more technology to get out. But then again, a significant part of it is going to be pretty easy to extract, even though it's shale oil. Okay, this is a game changer in the Middle East, and I want to point out something else too, because I don't know if he's that credible anymore. But well, it depends on who it is I'm talking to, but Pastor Lindsey Williams always talks about his oil insider elite friends that he knew from when he was a pastor, when he worked on the oil line in Alaska, and how to give him inside information about the Bakken oil reserve and all this type of stuff in the United States. Well, this Arckaringa Basin in Australia is actually 6 times larger than the Bakken reserve. How's that? And it can actually, if you know, it's going to start being developed fairly soon, because they knew it was there, but when they did this large $30 million study very, very recently, they found out it was way, way, way bigger than they expected. And actually, this 233 billion barrels may actually be 300 or 400 billion barrels or more. And there's also something involved with this, because as they extract the shale oil, it's going to make it, as a side benefit, they're going to get natural gas out of the area too. And I don't know what the hell that's amounting to. Like, Australia's been, obviously, I don't know if anybody knows, but Australia's very strong country with commodities. They're one of the biggest coal exporters in the world. Also, liquefied natural gas, they're very high up on that. They're very rich in commodities, but this Arckaringa Basin reserve, whatever you want to call it, is actually, well, let me give you an estimate. Right now, they're saying it's 233 billion barrels of oil, right? Provable by this big, massive study they did. It may be a lot higher than that even, right? Saudi Arabia's reserves, which are, exaggerated, which they believe to be exaggerated for many years, is 263 billion barrels, okay? Saudi's reserves are a little bit larger than this, but it's about on par with that, and maybe Saudi's reserves are exaggerated, and maybe this is low ball, even though the numbers went up a lot recently with this new study in this Australian Arckaringa Basin. Maybe these numbers are actually too low. I know they talk about maybe there's oil that's not in pockets in the earth and it keeps getting replenished from the earth, and there's theories out there about like that, but I found it interesting that some of the insiders that call themselves insiders in the oil elite, and they have the ear of the oil elite, and the oil elite tell them things, and get your pencil and paper, they did not mention this. Now, what this might mean geopolitically, if you want to call it that way, if there's a war in the Middle East, it's not going to be over oil, man. It's not going to be over oil. We got a lot of oil coming on strong in the United States. Now, the problem with say, development of oil in Australia, it's the same problem maybe in Russia too. They do have a lot of know-how how to bring out the oil, but USA actually has the most technologically advanced know-how on how to get the oil out of the earth, shale oil and everything. That's why it's coming on so strong. It's probably forecast to be, before 2020, the number one oil producer in the world, the United States. That's, maybe that's a pipe dream of the guys that are running the oil industry. I don't know. But it's actually the technology that's actually bringing on a lot more of the oil producing capacity in the United States. But this Arckaringa Basin is right now 12% of the entire globe's oil reserves. It's the largest oil find in about 40 or 50 years. 12%. You're including all of Canada, all the Bakken Reserve in the United States, which is like tiny compared to the whole globe, actually. All of Saudi, all of Venezuela, everything in Iran, Iraq, Russia, everything. It's 12% of the entire globe as of right now. And see, this was just done with a new study, and that's where they found out about it. Now, it's kind of like semi-hidden information. It's not, totally hidden. And I'll point to a link on some article where I got it from. Actually, this was only out in July of 2013. But, it's brand new. It's brand new. So Australia may be the next oil superstate. It's probably going to surpass. This is not conjecture. When Saudi Arabia says they have an estimated 263 billion barrels of oil, that may be overblown. This may be, when they're saying 233 billion barrels of oil, some are saying it may be much, much higher than that. So this may be the number one country in the world for oil production, Australia. The more things change, the more things they stay the same. I don't know, maybe the United States and Australia are going to be the two big powerhouses in oil, which makes you wonder, like, why even bother in the Middle East? Now, it's probably more complicated than that. Maybe some of the issue, I know people want to get mad when they say this, but, I think some of the religious elements in the Middle East and, some of the new technological advances in weaponry that could fall into the wrong hands is the main problem. There's people aren't going to like me saying that, but that's really the truth, It's not going to be a war over oil. That's what it looks like for sure, because we got too much oil in other countries now. And, actually, if you look at T. Boone Pickens, with all the natural gas that we have in the United States, we can also be running a lot of our fleet, our trucker fleet, and our cars on natural gas. So, but when I'm looking at this article, I actually thought about something I heard about from Pastor Lindsey Williams recently about his insider information from the oil elite, and he never mentioned this. He never mentioned this. Now, I did not get this from some oil baron elite friend I know. It's that I read articles on various financial information that I find from bona fide sources, that a lot of other people could read, but there's not too many people that read as much as I do. So that's, where I found it. So anyway, but it looks like that throws an entire monkey wrench in a scenario where oil prices are going to go way to hell up, like some of the forecasts out there. Now, it is actually my gut instinct that oil prices, like I just said, they won't go way up. They may spike up. Spike meaning I think oil actually has one more super spike left in it. In other words, it's going to go like a rocket, and the only reason it may go over $200 a barrel as a spike and fall dramatically fast, because the supplies are there. In other words, they know there has all this oil here now, right? But it's not going to jump out of the ground immediately. Just like the same principle with gold and silver and everything, you might say there's a lot of gold and silver everywhere, but if the price drops too low, mines close down, and you just don't open up a mine like you're opening up a hair salon or a lawnmower business or something like that. You know what I mean? It requires a lot more infrastructure, know-how, and capital to get going, right? So that's the one thing I do think where you might see a little bit of truth to some of the Lindsey Williams predictions. And I don't know about that guy too much, but I'm going to tell you my prediction is I think there is one more super spike in oil left. And a spike means it goes way up like this and then it falls off the cliff. It's not going to stay up there. It's not going to stay up there. It's going to spike. That's kind of like what I expect to happen with the metals too. It's probably all going to happen at the same time. But this is very interesting because it basically puts a dampener on alternative and free energy because, it's now that the price of oil, once they get this going, if they had the technology, like if the U.S., if this was found in the United States, the United States does have the technology to get it out, but it doesn't matter because since it's found, there's always going to be a partnership with somebody that this oil is actually going to come to market. And it means there's plenty of oil for the earth. Oil is not going to run out for any time soon. About the predictions about running out and all this type of stuff don't look like it's going to happen that fast. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time because they keep finding more, and even when they find, more, they find cheaper ways to get it out of the ground with new technology. But this Australian find in this Arckaringa Basin, it's highly, highly interesting because relate that to what's going on in the Middle East. We're friends with Saudi because they got all the oil reserves and stuff like that. Well, who the hell needs them, right? Who the hell needs them? Saudi's oil reserves might be running out. And, this thing is actually 6 times bigger than the Bakken reserve. Now, when Lindsey Williams was talking about this stuff, years ago about the Bakken reserve and all that type of stuff, they knew about this Arckaringa Basin, but they didn't know it had this much till pretty recently. This is a fairly new, I think it's within the last year they found out that this has this much. It's 60 times more than the known reserves that Australia thought they had before they found out about this. That's insane. It's 12% of the global reserves of oil. How's that? It's, right now they're saying it's almost as big as the Saudi oil reserves, but it may turn out to be much bigger than the Saudi oil reserves that the Saudi government is saying they actually have, and they may not have. So this is a major game changer, and but I have to say this: I still think there's going to be one more time left where there's going to be a super spike in oil prices. And spike means it doesn't go up and stay like this. Just like it's probably going to happen around the same time as silver. It's going to go way the hell up there, and it's not going to stay like a plateau. It's going to spike. And just to backtrack a little bit on some things I said previous in other videos, I think there's going to be a more mini spike in 2014 on silver, platinum, and palladium, and maybe oil too. But you're going to see a major spike at one time. Because even if they prove they got 400 billion barrels of oil here or something, even if they prove it, they just can't bring it out to market like nothing. It's going to take a lot of time, exploration, how they're going to go about it, a lot of capital, there's so much that has to be done. EPA studies, it's not just the financing, it's the wildlife studies, the EPA studies. I'm sure they probably have that in Australia. How much, hiring the people, training the people, getting the right people there with the know-how, getting the equipment. And, all this equipment isn't like, it might have to be custom made too, to bring some of this oil to into market, so it's not going to just jump out of the ground right away. But it looks like that's going to actually bring down the price of oil when the super spike is occurring, and you're going to see a lot of people out there say oil does go to $150 to $200 a barrel. The only reason it's going to be that high is because people are going to be buying it with the expectation that it's going to go higher. But I bet you it drops drastically. There's too much oil on the earth, and they keep finding more. And this is another example. But I found it interesting that Pastor Lindsey Williams, who talks to this oil elite all the time, failed to mention this Arckaringa Basin, which is 6 times larger than the Bakken oil reserve in the United States. It's the largest discovery of oil in the last 40 or 50 years. Way bigger than any discoveries that have been happening in Venezuela or Iran or anything. So it makes those countries insignificant. And it actually could make Australia a superpower, but they better watch out about China, man. Because China probably wants that stuff, man. So they ought to go back. They need a Second Amendment in Australia. I can tell you that right now. Because if they get invaded, you know what I mean.